The flickering candles on the dinner table cast a warm glow, but the chill between them was unmistakable. Ethan's fingers drummed the mahogany wood, his mind swirling with thoughts he couldn't shake. Across from him, Claire, his wife of 8 years, smiled faintly, her eyes distant, as though lost in a world he no longer had access to. Ethan noticed the little things first. She had started spending more time on her phone, laughing at texts she wouldn't share. Her scent had changed too, her usual floral perfume replaced with something sultrier, muskier. It wasn't the kind of thing she would choose for herself. Then there were the absences, the sudden work trips, and the vague explanations that made no sense. He wanted to believe it was all in his head, that the woman he loved couldn't betray him. But the unease gnawed at him like termites through wood, eroding the foundation of his trust. Tonight he had resolved to confront her, but the words stuck in his throat, heavy with fear and anger. "Everything okay?" Claire asked, snapping him from his thoughts. Her voice was soft, almost caring, but Ethan couldn't shake the feeling that it was a performance. "Yeah," he lied, forcing a smile. "Just a long day at work." Claire nodded and resumed eating, her focus elsewhere. Ethan clenched his jaw. The woman who used to share every detail of her day with him now felt like a stranger sitting across the table. The following weekend, Ethan decided he couldn't ignore his suspicions any longer. Claire had left for a work assignment, but her explanation had been shaky at best. She didn't offer details about where she was going or when she'd be back. And when Ethan asked for more information, she brushed him off with a quick kiss and a promise to explain later. After pacing the house for hours, Ethan finally sat down at her desk. Claire had always been meticulous about keeping her work organized, and her laptop was no exception. It sat open, the screen dark. Ethan hesitated for a moment, his finger hovering over the power button. "Am I really going to do this?" he thought. But the nagging doubts and sleepless nights pushed him forward. He pressed the button, and the screen flickered to life. Her password was still the same, the one they'd shared for years. For a moment, Ethan felt a pang of guilt, but it was quickly drowned by the avalanche of emotions that followed. The inbox was full of emails, most of them work-related, but one name kept appearing over and over again. Darren. The subject lines were innocuous. Meeting notes, quick follow-up, but the contents were anything but professional. Ethan's heart raced as he clicked through the messages. Each one confirmed his worst fears. "Can't wait to see you tonight. I've missed you so much. You looked stunning in that dress yesterday. I couldn't keep my eyes off you." Ethan won't suspect a thing. He's been so busy with work lately. The room spun as Ethan read the words. His stomach churned and his hands trembled. The woman he had devoted his life to, the one he had trusted above all else, had betrayed him. When Claire returned that evening, Ethan was sitting in the living room, the printed emails spread out on the coffee table before him. She froze in the doorway, her eyes darting to the papers and then back to him. For a moment, neither of them spoke. "Is this what you've been doing?" Ethan finally asked, his voice barely above a whisper. Claire didn't respond. Instead, she dropped her purse on the floor and sat down across from him. "I didn't want you to find out like this," she said, her voice trembling. "Then how?" Ethan snapped, his anger bubbling to the surface. "Were you planning to tell me at all, or were you just going to keep lying to my face?" Claire looked away, tears welling in her eyes. "I didn't mean for it to happen, Ethan. Don't," he interrupted. "Don't give me excuses. I want the truth." For the next hour, Claire explained how she had met Darren at a networking event 6 months ago. She claimed it started as a harmless friendship, but over time, it had developed into something more. Ethan listened in silence, his emotions a whirlwind of rage, betrayal, and heartbreak. When she was done, he stood up, his mind made up. "I'm leaving," he said. "We're done." Ethan moved out the next day. He couldn't bear to stay in the house they had shared, surrounded by memories of a life that now felt like a lie. He stayed with his best friend, Lucas, who welcomed him with open arms and a fully stocked fridge of beer. "You don't have to talk about it if you don't want to," Lucas said, handing him a cold one. Ethan nodded, grateful for the offer. He wasn't ready to open up just yet. Over the next few weeks, Ethan threw himself into his work. The long hours were a welcome distraction, but they couldn't fill the void Claire had left behind. He replayed their conversations over and over in his head, questioning every decision he had ever made. What did I do wrong, he wondered. Was I not enough for her? It wasn't until he started therapy that he began to find answers. His therapist, Dr. Monroe, helped him see that Claire's actions were a reflection of her own insecurities, not his shortcomings as a husband. She made a choice, Dr. Monroe said during one session, and that choice says more about her than it does about you. The divorce proceedings were messy, as Ethan had expected. Claire didn't contest the split, but she fought for a larger share of their assets, claiming she had sacrificed her career for their marriage. Ethan found her arguments laughable, given her recent actions, but he decided not to fight her on every little detail. It's not worth it, Lucas told him. Let her take what she wants. You'll rebuild. And rebuild he did. Over the next year, Ethan focused on creating a new life for himself. He moved into a sleek, modern apartment downtown and took up new hobbies like cooking and photography. Slowly but surely, he began to rediscover himself. Then one sunny afternoon, he met Olivia. Olivia was everything Claire wasn't. She was warm, genuine, and unpretentious. They met at a gallery opening where one of Ethan's projects was being showcased. Olivia, a structural engineer, was immediately drawn to his work. "Your designs are incredible," she said, her eyes lighting up as she examined the model of a skyscraper he had designed. Ethan smiled, feeling a spark he hadn't felt in years. They exchanged numbers, and over the next few months, their connection deepened. Unlike his relationship with Claire, which had been filled with secrets and lies, his relationship with Olivia was built on honesty and trust. She supported his dreams, challenged his ideas, and made him laugh in a way he hadn't thought possible. Years later, as Ethan stood on the balcony of his new home, a house he had designed with Olivia, he reflected on how far he had come. The betrayal that had once consumed him was now a distant memory, a chapter in his life that had taught him the value of resilience and self-worth. Claire's actions had been a turning point, but they didn't define him. He had found strength in the aftermath, rediscovered himself, and built a life worth living. As he looked out at the horizon, holding Olivia's hand, Ethan smiled. He was finally at peace. This extended version delves deeper into the character's emotions and the rebuilding process, ensuring a rich, engaging narrative.